Today, we're tackling what might just be the ultimate human question, using some seriously cutting-edge science. We're looking at death. New research is starting to give us the first real, concrete glimpses into our final moments. And honestly, what it's revealing is absolutely incredible. I mean, think about it. For all of human history, this has been the great unknown. It's a question that has literally shaped religions, philosophies, and our deepest fears and hopes. It's the one thing we will all experience, yet no one can really come back and tell us about it. Or at least, that's what we used to think. For the longest time, the answer to this question belonged strictly to faith and folklore. Science, it could tell us a lot about the body, what happens to our cells, but the mind, our consciousness, what a person actually experiences, well, that was a locked room. But that door, it's finally starting to creak open. Thanks to some amazing advances in neuroscience and what they call resuscitation science, we're getting the first real scientific peeks into what happens in the brain as we die. And what we're finding is just mind-blowing. Okay, so first things first, we have to completely rethink what death even is. The latest science is really clear on this. Death isn't a moment, it's a process. So let's break down what that actually means. We all kind of picture death like flipping a light switch, right? 1 second you're here, the next, you're gone. But it turns out, scientifically speaking, that's not how it works at all. Even after the heart stops beating, the brain doesn't just shut down instantly. It's more like a really complex system slowly powering down. Scientists actually call this period the gray zone. And get this, after your heart stops, your brain cells can actually stay alive for hours, not minutes. This discovery has completely changed the game for things like CPR and resuscitation, but it's also created this incredible window for researchers to study the dying brain. So yeah, death isn't an event, it's a biological journey.
And it's on that journey that we find our first piece of hard evidence. It was a discovery made completely by accident, and it gave us a look inside a dying mind that we've never had before.
You know how it is. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs just kind of fall into your lap. A team of neuroscientists was doing a pretty routine brain scan on a patient for a totally different reason, when, completely unexpectedly, the patient passed away. The patient was an 87-year-old man who was being treated for epilepsy. As part of his treatment, they had an EEG, which measures brain waves, hooked up to his head to monitor for seizures. And right in the middle of the scan, he suddenly had a fatal heart attack. Because that EEG was already running, the researchers captured something absolutely extraordinary. The first ever recording of a human brain in the moments right before and right after death. What they saw on that readout was just astonishing. In the 30 seconds before and after his heart stopped beating, there was this huge surge of very specific brainwave activity. The lead researcher, Dr. Ajmal Zamar, came up with a stunning idea. Maybe the brain is playing back memories, like a final highlight reel of our lives. The type of activity they saw was the key. It was a massive spike in what are called gamma waves. Think of these as the brain's highest gear. They're the highest frequency brainwaves, and they're linked to things like intense focus, memory recall, and even vivid dreaming. The pattern looked almost identical to someone who is deep in a dream or trying to remember a powerful memory. So that EEG recording gives us the neurological what. We can see the brain is active. But what about the human side of it? If the brain is replaying memories, what does that actually feel like? Well, to answer that, we have to turn to the millions of people who have actually been brought back from that gray zone. To study this properly, scientists have started moving away from the kind of vague term near-death experience. They've adopted a much more precise name, a recalled experience of death, or RED. This just lets them systematically look at the universal themes that people report after they've been resuscitated from the brink of death. And what's really fascinating is that across all kinds of different cultures and belief systems, a surprisingly consistent story emerges. Let's look at the basic narrative people describe. It often begins with a feeling of separating from their body, then heading towards some kind of destination, followed by a really deep life review. Then there's this feeling of being home again, right before they return to life.
So the experience frequently kicks off with this strange sense of detachment, a feeling of being an observer, almost like you're watching a movie of yourself, just like in this account. It's a state of what researchers call paradoxical lucidity, where the mind feels sharper and clearer than ever, even while the body is physically shutting down.
And then you have the life review, which, wow, it aligns so perfectly with that burst of gamma waves we saw in the EEG. People say they don't just see events from their life, they re-experience them, but often from the perspective of the other people involved.
They feel the ripple effects of their actions, both good and bad, in what they describe as this moment of overwhelming understanding.
This brings us to one of the biggest paradoxes of all. The leading hypothesis, which you can see laid out here, is that these incredibly vivid, lucid experiences, they aren't happening when the brain is just drifting off, like in a dream. No, they seem to be happening at the absolute deepest levels of coma, when from the outside a person appears completely and totally gone.
And that brings us to another closely related mystery that just challenges everything we thought we knew about the brain and what consciousness even is. It's a phenomenon that really seems to defy all logic.
It's called terminal lucidity. And listen to this, it's when people with severe dementia or other brain disorders, people who might have been nonverbal and unresponsive for years, suddenly, just before they die, they regain total clarity. They recognize their family, they have meaningful conversations, they seem to be themselves again. It's this beautiful, baffling event that science just can't explain yet.
Okay, so we've got a brain replaying life. We've got people who've come back describing this profound life review. And we've got these mysterious moments of clarity at the very end. So what does it all mean? What is it all suggesting about our final moments?
When you put all these pieces of the puzzle together, it really points to this idea that our final moments might be this profound act of self-reflection. This quote from one of the sources really just captures it perfectly. In a way, the science of death seems to be turning the focus right back around to the science of living.
And that leaves us with a final, really powerful thought. All of this research doesn't just tell us about dying. It asks us about how we should live. If the end of our life is a reflection of the entire journey, well then every single moment matters. So the question isn't just for scientists or philosophers, it's for every single one of us. What kind of replay